Good morning. My name is Coco LoMonaco, and I'm a senior at Santa Monica High School, and I'll be graduating in the spring. As a sophomore in high school, I spent 6 months in rural Argentina as an exchange student. After I said goodbye to my parents and to my best friend, I felt alone. I remember walking to security, barely being able to see through my tears. I was crying so obnoxiously that arguably one of the grumpiest people, a TSA agent, tried to console me. When I finally sat at my gate, it felt like a rock sat in my stomach. Yet somehow, this overwhelming fear looming over me gave me some comfort. Something about this terrible, awful, heartbreaking feeling felt right. I knew that this was the beginning of a whole new chapter in my life, and as terrified as I was, I knew that I was doing the right thing. Flash forward a few weeks, and I didn't only know that I was doing the right thing, but I felt like I was doing the right thing. Although there were plenty of days when all I wanted to do was go home, hug my parents, and be with my family, I developed relationships with people there that I never could have imagined. In just 6 months, I was as close to people there as I was to my lifelong friends from home. I ate empanadas and went to folklore festivals. I went to surprise birthday parties and heartwarming baptisms. I developed a life there that was truly my own, yet so different from anything I had ever known before. I had no one to depend on and no one to make it easier. I suffered for weeks, and I could almost scream with frustration when I simply couldn't say what I wanted to. I was imprisoned by my own lack of knowledge and freed by my constant desire to learn more. I taught myself to be independent and how to ask questions. But as an exchange student, I had a network of counselors always reaching out to me, and every few months, all of the exchange students from my area got together, and we had what was called these check-ins. And they were always at the same place, a small little 2-room building out in the middle of the forest. If you know anything about northern Argentina, then you know that there are not many forests. Being out in nature is where I find my peace, where I'm happy to sit in silence and just be. So during our lunch break, I was doing just that. One of my counselors sat and joined me, and we started talking, and finally he asked me, "What is one of the biggest differences you see in your life here and your life in the US?" After rambling on about the obvious things like food and language and my dogs, I finally said that I missed going to church every Sunday. We kept talking about religion and what he believed and what I believed, until I finally said that I personally don't believe in hell or Satan. He almost looked personally offended when I said this and nearly yelled, "How could you not believe in Satan? Do you think God is responsible for tragic wars and giving cancer to good people?" I was shocked, to say the least. This was a part of my faith that I'd never really explored, nor had I ever been asked to justify why I did or didn't believe in something. This conversation lasted for about half an hour, and although we both walked away slightly shaking our heads and still slightly perplexed, we began to understand each other's perspective on the world just a little bit more. In the days following this, the phrase "don't talk about religion or politics" was stuck in my head. I almost became mad at the phrase and even mad at my own complacency with it. I couldn't understand why, as a society, we wouldn't want to talk about these things. In a world of fighting and violence and political disagreement, why were we still teaching people not to have these conversations? And as a consequence, we were preventing people from gaining a fundamental understanding of each other. Although we disagreed, this conversation allowed us to see the commonality and, more importantly, the humanity in one another. We were no longer an Argentinian man and an American girl, or a Presbyterian and a Catholic. We were just two people who sometimes agreed and sometimes disagreed. It is so easy for us to become comfortable in our lives. I have the exact same breakfast and lunch every day. I have the same daily routine. I do my easy homework first and procrastinate all my harder work. I stare at the ground when I don't know if I should say hi to someone. I don't like to be uncomfortable. I like having my friends around me. I like eating the same food. I like my routine. I like being surrounded by safe things. I see other people do this all the time. People will try and avoid eye contact with somebody asking for money or scroll through their phones instead of making small talk with people at the store. In Mark 6, 7 through 11, we see Jesus directly challenge us to defy this. Calling the 12 to him, he began to send them out 2 by 2 and gave them authority over impure spirits. These were his instructions. Take nothing for the journey except a staff. No bread, no bag, no money in your belts. Wear sandals, but not an extra shirt. Whenever you enter a house, stay there until you leave that town. And if any place will not welcome you or listen to you, leave that place and shake the dust off your feet as a testimony against them. Not only do we see Jesus preach this, but we see him live it out time and time again. Whenever he talks to women or to the sick or to children, he makes his disciples uncomfortable. But ultimately, he shows us how similar we all are, how at the end of the day, we are all just people. When we leave behind our comforts, our food, our friends, all of our favorite things, when we try and leave behind the stereotypes we hold to be true and the idea of ignoring tough conversations, we expose ourselves in the way Jesus told his disciples to. We give ourselves room to grow in the discomfort. It has become so normal in the world today for culture or language barriers to become a reason not to talk to someone, but this should excite people. The opportunity to talk to someone who has been raised with a different language in a different country or with a different culture allows humanity to connect and relate to each other. The conversation I had with my counselor was the beginning of my whole new outlook on life. I began to understand that language and religion and culture are not things that divide us, but instead our fear of leaving behind the things that make us feel safe. The fear of being uncomfortable divides us. In the fall, I will be attending IE University in Madrid, and I'll study politics, law, and economics. And a little side note before I come off. In the spirit of Mother's Day, I want to not only thank my mom, but thank the mom of the church, because she truly has meant so much to all of us. And whether it's in Mexico or here, she has meant so much to all of us, and I know that I'm not just speaking for myself, so. Yeah.